Let's explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. And no, Alpha is not late this morning. I gotta give it to him. He texted me earlier. He's having some major internet issues in California because California pretty much sucks. So yeah, he's having some internet issues. So I'm gonna be running the show alone this morning. And if he gets it figured out, he might pop in. But yeah, I'm not going to have him, if his internet's wonky, I'm not going to have him going in and out and in and out and in and out and all that stuff. So I'll run it alone. And here we go. Welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to doing this here, going solo on today's show. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and get a word from our sponsors. And first up, guys, those nights when you just don't sleep and the next day you're dragging, you're exhausted, and everything just feels a little bit harder. Well, that's where CBD from CBDistillery.com can make a big difference. It's not just for sleep, though. CBDistillery is solutions that work with your body to help with stress, pain after exercise, even mood and focus. And it's all made with the highest quality, clean ingredients. That's a key word, clean ingredients. No fillers, just premium CBD. Imagine waking up rested, enjoying your day without those nagging aches and pains. That is the real win with CBDistillery solutions. And that's why over 2 million people trust CBDistillery. I don't have to tell you guys. I talk about the gummies and some of the other supplements, the pet tinctures and the tinctures for myself that I take every day. Love their products. Absolutely fantastic. So if you're ready for better sleep, less stress, and feeling good in your own skin again, try CBD from CBDistillery. And right now you can save up to 25% off your entire purchase if you go to CBDistillery.com and use promo code Badlands. Again, that's CBDistillery.com, promo code Badlands. CBDistillery.com. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations. All right. And then we will also talk about our newest sponsor and one that I'm very excited about, Comet. Let me ask you, how much time do you spend every day on your web browser doing, clicking around, doing all that stuff? Well, searching, scrolling, typing, endless tabs. It's a lot to take in, right? Well, there's a new AI web browser from Perplexity called Comet that is completely changing the way that you are able to interact with your browser. Using Comet feels like having a personal assistant living right in your web browser that can actually do things for you across the internet. Yes, do things, not just give you answers. You can ask Comet to handle tasks for you, and it literally clicks, types, searches, scrolls, just like you would, to get things done while you're in the background going about your day. Comet can shop for you, make reservations, book travel, summarize articles or videos, send emails, schedule meetings, can even make posts for you. That's the demonstration that I like to use, is making posts. And that started actually with Alpha. The last time he was MIA from the show, I had Comet go on my X and repost Alpha's top engaged post that mentioned Operation Gladio, and it did it. and it was pretty badass. I showed you guys in real time, Comet going in and doing that. So it's pretty cool. But download Perplexity's new AI web browser Comet now by heading to pplx.ai/badlands and let the browser work for you. And right now, you can get a free month of Rumble Premium by downloading the browser. So head to pplx.ai/badlands and take back your time online. I absolutely love the Comet browser. It's fantastic. Yes, guys, so I am alone today. Alpha is having some internet issues over there. He did text me. He was up 40 minutes early, so he's probably going to get ready to do his cold plunge. And he gave me a heads up that he's going to probably not going to be able to make it. So that's okay. It happens. It happens. I mean, we don't have, huge budgets to have like backup internets and everything else like some of the newsrooms. So we make do. All right. On a side note, I did get to do my first live stream back on YouTube. That was actually pretty cool yesterday. I did just an exclusive to give an overview. I was actually surprised how many people, when I got banned in 2021, how many people didn't, follow on other platforms and stuff, and are now, hopefully there's some new Badlanders in the chat right here that saw the show yesterday, wanted to see the other things that I'm doing. And hopefully you guys are in the chat this morning, checking out the show. So if you're new to Badlands and you came over from my stream yesterday, just say hello in the chat. And even if you're just lurking, say hello in the chat. It helps out tremendously. Yeah, Mags was over there, said it was great to see everyone again, Brian. Yeah, a lot of people that were in that chat that names I hadn't seen in 4 years. It was absolutely awesome. So, all right, let's jump into the news. Before we do that, please smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. And we will start out here with this story from Just the News, which ironically, Chris Paul and I yesterday on Badlands Daily were mentioned this guy, although we probably should have, poked around on this a little bit more, because it's interesting that his name comes up again today. James Comey's lawyer, Patrick Fitzgerald, is linked to the Comey memo leak saga that prompted the Robert Mueller appointment. All right, so this is a bit of a long story here, but I find this very interesting. We've often joked on this platform, not joked, but we've talked about on this platform, the quote unquote Rico Grand. This is starting to look a little bit more like conspiracy here, as more and more people's names are being dropped in this story. So let's dive into this from Just the News. Fitzgerald, also a former U.S. attorney, was one of Comey's lawyers after President Donald Trump fired him in May of 2017. After he was fired, Comey sent Fitzgerald copies of his memorializations of private conversations he had with Trump, and then Fitzgerald forwarded copies of those memos to Daniel Richman, a longtime friend of Comey's, who was also serving as one of Comey's lawyers at the time. Comey also texted Richman a copy of one of his memos, and at Comey's direction, Comey works too there, by the way, Richman leaked the contents of one of those, one to the New York Times for the purpose of, this is fascinating, sparking the appointment of a Justice Department special counsel to carry on the Trump-Russia investigation. Later on, Rod Rosenstein, the then Deputy Attorney General, would appoint Robert Mueller, or select Robert Mueller. Actually had to be appointed. Richman, now a Columbia University law professor, was assisting Comey and the FBI during the 2016 election and is believed to have been the person that Comey authorized to leak to the press. Now, let's jump here a little further because we got some more information. So the indictment itself says Comey did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement by falsely stating to a U.S. senator that he had not, quote, authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. Sources familiar with the matter, I hate that term, but whatever, confirmed that person one is Hillary Clinton. Comey, in fact, had authorized person three to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person 1. So who's person 3? Well, originally they thought that person 3 was going to be Andrew McCabe. And I don't really know where that comes from, because I remember when Richmond got subpoenaed, we were like, oh, that was the source. So, and this was like a month ago, maybe more. I don't remember. But when Richmond got subpoenaed, we were like, oh yeah, that's the source. And that's what the reporting was, is that Richmond's the source. So I don't know where McCabe's name got thrown into that there. But it says that the allegation that person 3 is Richmond comes after multiple news articles suggested that the person in question had been former FBI deputy director Andrew McCabe. Sources familiar now state that person number 3 is in fact Richmond. Okay, so just to summarize this real quick, Comey sends a memo to Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald's now his lawyer representing him in the criminal indictment, but at the time he was a lawyer representing him post-Trump firing. Comey sends the memos to Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald then sends them to Richmond. Richmond leaks them to the New York Times. So that's the broad view of what's happening here. Now we're going to get a little more minute here based on the Horowitz report that Dunleavy uncovers here. And I'm going to go ahead. It looks like he's staying pretty consistent. So I'm going to bring Alpha on. You good, bro?
Looks like it. We're going to find out.
All right, let's just make a deal. If it's going to be glitchy and like in and out, let's just call it out, because it's going to be too crazy. But I know you've been listening to me talking about this the whole time. So before I move on, anything you want to add to this?
No, I am kind of curious to how McCabe's name got brought in there. So I was hoping there'd be some more information on there, but no, I'm tracking.
I think it's probably just the usual suspects, right? Like it was Kaiser Sose. It was definitely Kaiser Sose, although he wasn't the usual suspect. Kaiser Sose was not the usual suspect. It was Kevin Spacey. What was Kevin Spacey's name in that movie?
I'll have to look it up.
He was the crippled, right? He had the limp, and then what a great movie. I want to watch that movie again.
He's an evil bastard, bro.
He is. But that was such a great movie, man. You had the Baldwin brothers, one of the Baldwins. I think it was Stephen Baldwin. No, it wasn't Stephen. It was the other one. Anyways. All right. So reading on, Fitzgerald and Comey have long been close. This is why I wish me and Chris would have poked on this a little bit yesterday, because we would have had this before this. Fitzgerald and Comey have long been close. Comey had previously named Fitzgerald as special counsel back in 2003 during the Valerie Plame saga, in which when Fitzgerald was U.S. Attorney for Northern Illinois and Comey was the Deputy AG for the Bush Justice Department. Yesterday, when we did just a quick who is Fitzgerald or who is Comey's attorney, that's what came up, the Valerie Plame saga. So that's pretty interesting. Comey was fired May 9th, 2017. A few days later, on May 14th, Horowitz found that, quote, now this is Inspector General Horowitz, found that, quote, Comey sends scanned copies of memos 2, 4, 6, and 7 from his personal email account to the personal email account of one of his attorneys, Patrick Fitzgerald. Now, these are memos of discussions between President Trump and James Comey. Now, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, but Alpha, what is the likelihood that personal memos between the President of the United States and the Director of the FBI are classified?
I would say 99.9%.
Very, very highly likely. What are the SOPs around sending classified information on personal email accounts?
Can't do it.
Cannot do it.
It's
all
an
right.
absolute.
Yeah, that is an absolute. Exactly. That's 101 in security clearance school in the military is do not send classified information, not even over Nipper. Like you got to send it over Sipper. We have two different internet connections in the military. One's open and one is for intelligence. So Comey sends the scanned copies of memos 2, 4, 6, and 7 from his personal email account to the personal email account of his attorney, Fitzgerald. 3 days later, on May 17th, the watchdog said that, quote, Fitzgerald forwards these 4 memos to Comey's other attorneys, including Richmond. It says, quote, Fitzgerald also forwarded the email and attachments from his personal email account on the 17th of May, 2017 at 4:47 p.m. to another email account belonging to Fitzgerald. So he sent it from his personal account to another account that he had.
Fitzgerald then saves the PDF attachment on his computer, after which he said he placed the incoming email from his personal email account into the deleted items folder. So he sends it from personal account to another account, downloads the contents, and then deletes any trace that it happened. Okay, we tracking?
Tracking.
All right. The fired FBI chief sent a digital photograph of Memo 4, which described a meeting in which Comey wrote that Trump talked to about the FBI's investigation into Lieutenant General Mike Flynn to Richmond on May 16th, 2017. Horowitz writes that, quote, Comey asks Richmond to share the contents, but not the memo itself, with a specific reporter for the New York Times, end quote, and that, quote, Comey's stated purpose is to cause the appointment of a special counsel. Alpha, if I have a classified document, am I allowed to discuss the contents of that classified document with the press?
Nope.
Nope. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's the full document or just what's in the document, period.
It's what they came after Trump with that article.
Yes. That's a great point, man. The New Yorker article when he was with the people and he's like, this is me. This is what they're talking about. Yeah. Great point, man. All right. The New York Times then published an article entitled Comey Memo Says Trump Asked Him to End Flynn Investigation on May 16th, 2017. So the timeline adds up perfectly. And Rosenstein then appointed Mueller as special counsel the very next day. Okay. I mean, this is a lot more than just lying to Congress, guys. You remember when these indictments came down, a lot of the legal professionals out there in the magosphere were saying that this is set up for superseding indictments. I can't remember. I think it was Catherine Herridge, actually, who said, I've looked at my fair share of, indictments and stuff within the DOJ, and this one is set up perfectly for superseding indictments. So, all right. Peter Strzok enters the chat, told Horowitz that he was watching Comey's June 2017 testimony with several people, including James Baker and Rybicki, Baker being the general counsel at the FBI, Rybicki being the chief of staff to Comey at the time, when Comey stated that he gave a memo to a friend, quote, everybody in the room knew, oh, that's Richmond. Baker told the DOJ watchdog that he remembered, quote, literally running down the hallway to his office, end quote, with Strzok, finding Richmond's telephone number and getting Richmond on the phone right away. Baker said he introduced Strzok and then left the call to watch the remainder of Comey's testimony. Why do you think, Alpha, so just play that in your head. Baker runs out of watching this, testimony of Comey with the group, runs down the hall at lightning speed with Peter Strzok, finds Richmond's number, who is just, implicated in this through Comey, calls him up and gets him on the phone, and then hands it over to Peter Strzok and leaves. Why did he leave?
So this way you would have plausible deniability or whatever.
Boom.
Was that conversation.
Boom. So Baker has no idea what happened on that. It's like you watch, in the movies when they hand, classified information and they're like, whoa, I don't want to see that. What was the one that I was just watching? The Recruit. Is it The Recruit? Yeah. The Recruit. And there's the one guy, he's like, don't ever show me classified information. I don't want to know about it because then I have plausible deniability. That's exactly what happened here, I think. Baker was like, talk to Strzok. He's the cleanup man. I'm out. I'm going back to watch the testimony. I don't want to hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. All right, reading on. Strzok told the DOJ Inspector General that he asked Richmond to, quote, please preserve, end quote, anything that Comey had given him, and that he told Richmond that what he received from Comey might contain classified information. Might. Presidential memos between the president and the FBI. Go try and FOIA that right now and see what happens. Horowitz said that quote, Strzok's handwritten notes established that Strzok knew that all of Comey's attorneys had electronic copies of the 4 memos. This is shaping up to be, and that story goes on. We'd be here all day covering the rest of that. This is shaping up to be much more than just Comey lying to Congress. This is could be seditious conspiracy. I mean,
it absolutely is.
Yeah,
it's gonna help establish a criminal enterprise. I started reading this book
Is it Government Gangsters?
No, that's next on my list.
Oh, Pardon of Innocence. Is that the
Yeah.
one that Powell wrote as well, or is that just Flynn's book? I can't remember.
No, I think this is just the general.
Oh, okay.
But in the beginning, he talks about this initial phase that you're reading here from the article, and you know who's. I mean, I didn't hear the beginning part of what you read, but I don't think she was in there because I think she would have came up again in what you're reading. Is Susan Rice?
She did not come up in this.
Yeah, and when you read his book, there's especially in the very beginning, her name's in there a lot. So I speculate that we're probably going to start seeing her name when some of these other people start to get brought up, because I really didn't think too much of her in this coming out. We got to get Flynn first, then Trump, and she was very instrumental in that. So I would expect to see her name pretty soon.
This is very fascinating that Fitzgerald is now the guy that's representing Comey, and he's probably, there's a good possibility that he's going to be named as a co-conspirator in the superseding indictment. I don't even know what happens when that goes down. Like, if he's your representation, I mean, he has to obviously recuse himself. He has to step down because he's going to need his own legal representation.
There is an SOP there for that. And I have to go and look it up, especially surrounding RICO cases, because this is a tactic of suspects, is to incorporate their attorneys into the criminal enterprise in order to create that scenario where you can't call these people to testify. Well, because that's my attorney. So there is an SOP for this, but I'm not familiar with it, but one does exist.
The other thing I think is really interesting about this, and the reason I emphasize those personal email accounts so much, is because who is this? This is sounding like not two individuals. There's two different ways you could go with this. This sounds a lot like Hillary, which is mentioned in here, which, remember, James Comey stood in front and said, no, it was Comey, right? That said no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges against this, right?
That was Comey.
Now we know that he was doing the same exact thing. He was sending classified information over his personal email accounts. But who else does this sound like? How about this guy? Grand jury from New York Post. Grand jury expected to indict National Security Advisor John Bolton for transmitting classified documents. What did he transmit the classified documents over? His personal email. So check this out. A grand jury convened on Wednesday afternoon to consider charges against John Bolton over his alleged sharing of highly sensitive classified materials on a private email server. It's almost like there's like a secondary, under the radar government being operated, a shadow government being operated in DC. What would we call that? There's like a term for that.
I
think it's called
off air. I'll give you information on what that email server potentially is, and you're gonna spit your coffee out when I tell you.
Oh man, why you gotta tease our audience, man? Like we're a limited hangout, and you guys are.
It's not a limited hangout because it doesn't change the context of the story yet.
Okay.
But
it's just a theory you're not comfortable enough to put out there yet.
I have to vet it. I have to continue to vet it, but it's highly likely.
Well, there you go. He'll tell me, and then we'll vet it and we'll get it out to you guys. But reading on, it says this comes 2 months after FBI agents raided Bolton's suburban Maryland home and his Washington D.C. office in search of evidence, purported the theft of highly sensitive national security information. Justice Department officials expect an indictment to be handed up either Wednesday or Thursday. So keep your eyes peeled, guys. This could be breaking at any moment. And if you see Bolton indicted, jump in the chat, because Bolton is one of the deep state actors that I'm most thrilled to see justice being served. And of course, my famous clip.
I disagree with that. As somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat, not here, but other places.
Burn the deep state to the ground. Guys, how is anybody not excited by what this administration is uncovering and putting out there in the public right now? So they expect an indictment handed down either Wednesday or Thursday, with one telling the Post the case against the 76-year-old is air tight. Bolton is accused of using his private AOL email account, to transmit classified information and record diary-like notes of his daily activities and assessments throughout his time in President Trump's first administration. Once again, that's all classified. It doesn't matter if it's the official documents that are classified, talking about them, giving, details of what's in those classified documents. That in and of itself is classified and protected. The account was hacked by an unidentified foreign entity at some point, according to probable cause warrants unsealed last month, meaning some of the secret information may have ended up in the hands of foreign governments or other bad actors. And again, Alpha, I think this is something that you and I specifically talked about. Why do you think John Bolton was using an AOL account to send these emails?
Because he absolutely knows that they would get intercepted.
Because he knows that they're either insecure or deliberately are being intercepted. This goes back to, I think when we talked about this last, it goes back to draft messages, right? This idea that you can give somebody access to your account, write a draft email. They can go in there and read the draft email, respond to the draft email, and it never actually gets sent over the wire. So nobody's any wiser to what's going on there. I don't know if that's what was happening. If you think back to Twittergate, when President Trump was going through the impeachment, what did they ask? Remember when they asked President Trump for his draft tweets? I thought that was fascinating. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that part.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. I'll pull that story up.
It makes sense because one of the things that I was sharing, when I first started to tell my story, my personal story with the FBI, was I told people, if you suspect that there's nefarious things in a police action, and there's a report on it, and I don't mind sharing this with the audience because this in no way jeopardizes good officers. This only jeopardizes ones that are corrupt and doing bad stuff. I said, here's something that no attorney has ever requested in my 14 years. And I said, when we write a police report, we submit that to the watch commander, typically a sergeant or a lieutenant, and then they'll review it. Well, if they kick it back, it's only supposed to be for factual errors. You put 8 a.m. when it was 8 p.m. or, you wrote Circle K when it should have been 7-Eleven. Like, it's supposed to be that, not supposed to change the context of your report. But every now and then, you'll get sergeants that they'll bring you to the office and they'll be like, hey, during that investigation, didn't you do something like this? And you're like, oh, yeah, I did that. And then they're looking at you like, okay, well, this report needs to be complete. And so they send it back to you. And that's supposed to be the extent of that. However, in a corrupt environment, you can have, sergeants or lieutenants that are like, hey, we're not putting that out to the public. Take that part out. And then it becomes an edit. And so what I've told people like, Ivan and others, I said, don't just subpoena or FOIA a police report. Subpoena and FOIL from its inception. The very first time that thing is submitted, I go, if you really want to get into the weeds of it, and most police report systems operate this way. That thing's saving. It's an auto draft saved like every 3 minutes, and there's records of all that. I go, however, you can't argue why there was an edit there because the officer himself could have said, oh, I didn't think it was relevant anymore. But once a report is submitted, that means that officer submitted it believing that everything he submitted was relevant. And so if they are requesting draft tweets and all that stuff, then they probably either want to know what was the completion of that tweet and why was it edited, or are you communicating via draft tweets? Just like the way they were doing on emails.
So the example of Trump was the J6 committee. Here it is, where he said to march on the Capitol. So I don't think it was communications in his case. All right. I don't think they were implying it was communications. I think it's a thought crime. In his case, right? Minority Report. It's a thought crime. He had the idea of doing it. I got news for you, man. I need to go clear out my draft tweets because there's a lot of tweets where I'll make, at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, you know what? Let me wait till tomorrow to post this one.
I was thinking about doing a show on my draft tweets. And if you want to join me on that, we could do it. Because if people are like, bro, you're wild for the shit you put out there. I'm like, man, you need to see the shit that I didn't hit send. That I'm like, you know what? Let me work out or sleep on this one.
Oh, you know what? That reminds me, I'm going completely out of order here. This story right here from Politico. I love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. Let's just say, man, this is so stupid. This story is so retarded. The idea, by the way, retarded is one of the words that they're like, oh my goodness, these people are saying retarded. They said faggot. Although I don't particularly like the word faggot. I think taking it back is a must. I prefer fag. I think fag is way
I agree. I think fag's along the line of the way we utilize retard.
Yes.
And,
Yeah. Faggot makes it sound like you're trying to hurt somebody. And I don't like that. I don't like that. So I don't use that word, but I don't care if you use that word. But retard and fag are like fine with me. Gay is fine with me. I mean, these are words that were like common vernacular when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, like everybody. And I went to Catholic school and everybody said these words. But I want to
here's, and obviously I don't know the full context of these messages, but it's not
beyond
these. What's that?
Nobody knows the full context of these messages.
But I think what I'm about to say is very likely, considering what we know. If they're saying I love Hitler, there's a high probability that they're referring to how the media keeps calling Trump Hitler, and they're like, well, I love Hitler, because they're actually referencing Trump because of what the media's, branded him as. That
I'm going way out of order here. Where's my tab? But if you look, this was so just to kind of move around a little bit here. JD Vance put this out, Vice President Vance, JD Vance. This is far worse than anything said in a college group chat. And the guy who said it could become AG of Virginia, I refuse to join the pearl clutching when powerful people call for political violence, referring to the Jay Jones text of calling out by name the murder of a former speaker. I wrote, the side that has been calling MAGA fascist, Nazi, and literally Hitler for years now is upset that we joke about the name calling in private. This is the most epic timeline ever. I had the same exact thought as you, Alpha, that these people probably are like, oh, they called us Nazi. Oh, really? When are we sending them to the gas chamber? When are we sending them to the showers? Like, this is probably the context in which most of these chats occurred. And
it's like if they went and got one of the clips where I'm doing this and they're like, oh my God. And it's just like, yes. I got vengeance coming for you. You know who
me?
did.
I didn't do it.
No, I'm speaking to the person who created it.
Oh boy.
On my radar.
We can name names. All right. So anyways, that's really all I wanted to cover on that story. I guess, they use the N-word again. If you go in, not me, but Cam and JB, and that's no secret, right? Gart, when him and John did their one-on-one panel, that's no secret. So this is just it. Oh,
Jason, the N-words they're referencing is their soft A. It's nigga.
Yeah.
It's not the hard R.
Yeah.
And like I've told Cam and JB, if I buy the damn CD, I'm singing all the lyrics. There it is. I pay for that shit. I'm singing everything.
Ain't gonna be no Florida Gators recruit getting kicked off because he TikTok him rapping and dropping the N with the soft A, and they literally pulled his scholarship for that. And now look at us. So
you're gonna see a shift in the culture of that. I think you're going to start to see alumni that have the dollar bills to back that are going to start to feel comfortable with pushing back against the alumni that are crazy liberals and being like, you know what, if you're going to bring this kid back on, or I'm going to pull my money. Yeah. I think we're going to see that direction coming.
Yeah. So here's the chat. And again, there's no context to this whatsoever. We don't even know if these messages are in sync with each other. There was 2,900 pages of this conversation that was handed over. And so they're taking small snapshots out of 2,900 pages, 251. And this is young Republicans age 18 to I think 40. And this is like a private chat that they have with some of the chairs and the vice chairs. And it says, everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber, and everyone that endorsed but then votes for us is going to the gas chamber. When do we start bullying, dude? We have a solid 3 people who can probably have them want to jump. If they vote for us, why would they be gassed? When do we bring that side out? Like, this is clearly exactly what we said. They're like, they called us Nazis, and we're like, oh well, if they're gonna call us Nazis, when are we gassing them? You know, that kind of shit. We want true believers. We only want true believers. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. Totally a joke. This is Politico is getting punked so bad on this chat, and they have no idea. I'm ready to watch people burn now. We got to pretend that we like them. Hey, come on in, take a nice shower and relax. Boom, they're dead. This is totally so stupid. Anyways,
they would be traumatized if they got ours, bro. They would be traumatized.
I mean, these are private chats, man. They're not meant to be public, first and foremost. If we're going to censor ourselves to the extent that we can't even make jokes amongst our closest friends, our closest people, that is so stupid, man. Like, and any of these people, these young Republicans out there, if some of them have apologized, like, I would not apologize for this. I would not apologize for my private communications.
Never apologize to the mob, ever. As a matter of fact, here's my advice to government officials that think that, you know, they may be next. Every now and then in your private messages, drop the meme of the black dude on the edge of the bed with everybody knows what part. Just throw that in there every now and then, right? You traumatize your buddy that's on the receiving end. So this way, when they go and they FOIA that, they just got to look at that over and over and over and over. And so when it makes the headlines like this, and there's that, you know, the black square that's going to redact it, you know what I mean? You can let everybody know, oh, it's because they were looking at schlong the whole time.
Just a quick funny story. I was at a Panthers game one like last season, and Alpha sent me a news article that he was like, "Oh my God, you got to read this." And I was like, "Whoa!" I don't remember what the headline was,
but I was victimized in that too, though.
Yeah, you were, but I was like, "Holy crap, this is a huge story!" And I clicked the link, and it takes you to the picture of that dude with the full frontal, like all, yeah, and it's a freaking Panthers game. The people behind me are elevated and looking down at the rink and can see exactly what's on my phone. And I'm like, oh my God, the people behind me think that like I'm like some perv, like looking at porn while I'm at a Panthers game. And I texted Alpha and I'm like, you're such an ass. And he's like, what? I said, click the link to the article you sent me. And he's like, oh, and he clicked, he's like, oh man, I'm so sorry. It's like, you don't even read the article.
You don't remember the other part of that though, do you?
No.
I panicked. Do you remember why?
You sent it to,
because I sent it to some important people too.
Yeah, you sent it to some important people. I remember that.
I was like, oh shit.
Always click the link, man. That's why Twitter's now like, or X is now like, do you want to read the story before you post? Yes, always select that option. All right, let's move on. Alpha took me off on a tangent there. We're going to get back to Trump had a press conference yesterday. We're going to get into that here in just a second. But this will kind of, I think, lead to it. So we've had a lot of J6 news coming out. This was, somebody sent this yesterday, and I want to play it today because it's pretty relevant. So this was Lindell TV, a reporter asking Nancy Pelosi about the upcoming J6 committee.
Congresswoman Pelosi, are you at all concerned that the new January 6th committee will find you liable for that day? Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
Look at that look, man. Look at that look.
You need to do the shades with the cigar right there, bro. That's perfect.
Right? Dude, great point, man. Liberty Line, make it happen. We need the shades, the Snoop Dogg shades, the Dog Pound shades, and the joint right here. Right here. We need that to happen.
Right.
Maybe not the joint, because it's Lindell TV. Maybe not the joint, but
do it a cigarette or cigar. Do the cigar.
Yeah, right. Well, so Chief's son responded to this and said, ma'am, let me refresh your memory. It was your sergeant at arms who repeatedly denied my multiple requests for National Guard assistance before and on January 6th. Even on January 6th, your sergeant at arms denied my urgent request for over 70 minutes. while he was running it up the chain for your approval. The Pentagon offered National Guard assistance, but had to decline because your sergeant at arms would not grant me the legal authority as required under federal law, 2 USC 1970. And then here's the timeline. January 3rd, 9:24, January 3rd, 11:53, all the way through January 6th at 2:08 p.m. when it was finally approved. And then I want to go back to this clip that I made back in the day, and I'll just play a couple minutes of this.
I am calling for the resignation of the chief of the Capitol Police, Mr. Sund, and I have received notice from Mr. Irving that he will be submitting his resignation.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
Chief Sund, in your transcribed interview, you mentioned that you met with the House Sergeant at Arms regarding the National Guard prior to January 6th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And who was the House Sergeant at Arms leading up to and on January 6th?
That would be Paul Irving.
And the House Sergeant at Arms was appointed by who?
It was appointed at that time by Speaker Pelosi.
And in your transcribed interview, you mentioned that when you first brought up the National Guard to the House Sergeant at Arms in the days leading up to January 6th, that Mr. Irving said he, quote, didn't like the optics, end quote. Is that correct?
Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
That is correct. He referenced being concerned for optics.
And on January 6th, when he went to Mr. Irving to get his approval to call in the Guard, Mr. Irving said he would, quote, run it up the chain. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That was a telephone call. I didn't see him in person when I first made that request.
The House Sergeant at Arms is considered probably the most senior security official on the House side. When Mr. Irving says he has to, quote, run it up the chain, end quote, what did that mean?
I took that to mean his leadership chain.
And who would be his leadership chain? If he's functionally the most senior security official on the House side, correct?
That's his title. That's part of the title, the senior law enforcement official for the House of Representatives. But he would have been referring to the leadership team that goes up to Speaker Pelosi.
There was a failure of leadership at the top of the Capitol Police.
So running up.
Yeah, I love it, man. This rerun is going to be epic because Pelosi she's done. I mean, there's no situation whatsoever where she's not held liable for what happened on that day, but she was not subject to any part of the J6 committee's investigation, deliberately, most likely. But yeah, this is a great storyline being brought up again.
Did you see Ivan in the background?
I did.
As soon as Chief brings up the Sergeant at Arms, he's like, he goes like this. Now, Ivan's he's been ahead of the curve in naming every single one of these people that's involved.
Ivan probably is the most entertaining person to watch at these hearings because he always makes sure to get right behind the witness, and he always makes sure to narrate it through his characters throughout. Ivan's awesome, man, and his personality behind the scenes is just. I was actually watching to see if he was trying to communicate with the person over Styles' shoulder because it kind of looked like the person over Styles' shoulder might have been doing a little head nodding there. But yeah, fascinating times, man. Anything you want to add to that?
I think we've been pretty lucky between the stuff Chief Sund's put out there and the same thing with I always say his name wrong. Is it Takrit?
Tarek Johnson.
Yeah,
Johnson.
Tarek. Think about where we would be absent both their information.
Yep.
And our ability to combat this J6 narrative would be exponentially different. So hats off to both those men.
Yeah, 100%, man.
And they didn't just give like a little, like they have named names and provided timelines to how this unfolded.
Yep. It's funny watching, like, you know, I don't know. I watched when I was in San Francisco, I watched on the plane, Kyle's video with Steve, not Steve Baker, with Steve Friend and one of the guys from the Blaze. I can't remember his name, but going over the J6 pipe bomb. Did you watch that one?
I didn't watch that one, but there's it's Baker too, though. Not the Baker you referenced from the article.
No, not Steve Baker. Not Steve Baker wasn't on this one, but Baker's been on top of the J6 thing. But this was another one. This was specifically around the pipe bombs, and, you know, whether or not they're a training device. It's all stuff that we picked up on as soon as we saw that report, and we're like, what does it mean viable? Could be a viable bomb, like that, you know, traces of black powder. Like, what the hell does that, or the chemical components to make black powder? It's like, what does that even mean? And I didn't get to talk to you about this, but, you know, the significance I talked about at the time, a friend of mine that trains DHS bomb dogs, you know, the traces there is you know,
from the odor.
Yeah, it's odors that are used to train dogs. It's literally what you almost got arrested for. If you want to comment on that, I'll give it to you, man.
Exactly what it is my speculation that those were the charges they intended to do, just like they did to Jeremy.
Yep.
They just didn't know. You know, you're not supposed to photocopy or make copies of those ATF licenses.
Yep.
But I was so paranoid that, you know, it would get damaged or I would lose it, that I had one. And so when they were like, nope, you don't have one, it doesn't exist, and I told them where it was, and they're like, no, it's not there. My immediate thing was like, these guys are going to try to hose me and say that, you know, I was in possession of quote unquote explosives, you know, when the reality is they're odors. However, you know, we did have fuse. Now, when you read the headlines and he had the fuse for explosives to make explosives, that wouldn't be a false statement. But if you understood the context of it, you'd be like, oh, because it was part of the odor kit that they use. And in this case, if you're using a training bomb, you're going to have odors either on the device itself that they rubbed on it, which would be traces, or you're going to have some type of odor patch that's in there as well in the bag, you know, whatever the case may be, because the dogs are supposed to find it. And so that's why when you say traces of odor, it sounds like, well, there you go, you know, for the black powder, there you go. However, it was probably because it was a decoy kit.
The comparison that Alpha's making here, going back to Jeremy Brown, is Jeremy Brown had a classified document in his possession that he was ultimately convicted of, which still blows my mind. But that classified document that he was in possession of was actually a template, and none of the information inserted into the document was not even real, nonetheless classified. So he had a trip report, which is a military term for, you know, something when we come back, we have to fill these out if you're leadership or whatever. He filled out the trip report on a non-secure, non-classified computer, and used fake information so that he could just later go back and plug in the classified information on SIPR, on the secure line, and send it up the chain. He kept the draft template, which was not classified. There was no classified information in it, and they convicted him of that. And they did not understand. This is Alpha's point right there, where they ultimately got him for that. So now we're seeing all the narratives for J6 crumbling. The National Guard narrative, we've known that one was crumbling, and, you know, it's coming back front and center. The J6 pipe bomb that diverted you know, dozens of resources. I think they said over 60 Capitol police officers were pulled off the West Side Terrace to go respond to and set up a perimeter around these bombs. That's what enabled the crowd to get past the barricades, because you didn't have the force there to defend the barricades and keep the people out. And when I say defended, I'm not talking like what we saw at the front. These would have been cops just standing there like, hey, you guys can't come back here. That's how it would have been if they had the area cordoned off properly. Instead, they all herded them into the pen, lobbed tear gas into the middle of them, incited violence by making these people literally gasp for air and fight for air. And then what did they do? They went to the closest place. I love this freaking exposure. The J6 thing coming to fruition here. Let's keep it going.
Well, and remember, because I want to make sure people don't let it die. When you have, was it 243, 273, you know, FBI agents, you know, that got reported, It doesn't stop there, folks. You still have to, that's just speaking for the FBI and officers. It's not speaking for assets. It's not speaking for CIs. It's not speaking for contractors. It's still not accounting if the NSA had people there,
Yes,
the CIA had people there, if there was DOD that was there. Like, there's still a whole lot left to uncover.
I love it, man. I'm so here for this. This is absolutely, they're going to get destroyed over this. And we haven't even gotten to the 2020 election yet.
One of the things that, and this was a couple months ago, it's sometime during Trump's new presidency, and I want to say it was probably closer to the beginning than now. I had brought Ivan on, and we're having a conversation surrounding the jurisdiction. And in that conversation, based off of his experience and my experience, one of the things that we both came to the conclusion of is, they had Sal, the Sal equipment. I'll be careful here. They had Sal equipment to make it hard for people to send pictures and text messages from the civilian population. Well, that Sal equipment's it sends a general signal. It's not like it's specifically looking to target Brian and Alpha. It's a general signal. So the only way you can make it not affect certain phones is those phones are tapped into that, like that number is put in there. So this way,
they're on a different network.
100%. Well, it's not just that, but so it doesn't affect that. Or if it's collecting data, it doesn't collect those. Now, if you're going to have assets in play or DOD in play, and you have all these operational plans, one of the things that we do is you submit, like, which phone are you going to have with you at the time of this operation? What is that number and what is that carrier? And so that way this equipment doesn't impact that. So in somebody's operational plan, they have the phone numbers to every specific asset that was there. At least that was on the U.S. government side of things. So there's your list right there to go off of.
I love it, man. I love it. All right. Speaking of the 2020 election, at the press conference yesterday, we got this little tidbit from President Trump, and I love it.
Did you have one? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask you about the Georgia Senate race. I know it's very early, but there's several Republicans in that field that are vying for your endorsement.
A lot of good people in that field.
Yes.
I know all of them, actually. I haven't made a decision on that, but you have some very good people in the Georgia Senate race.
Well, Governor has endorsed.
No, I know the governor has. He's spoken to me about it a lot. He likes that candidate a lot, and I understand that. I haven't made a decision yet, but I'm following that race very carefully. I think it's very important for Georgia to get a real senator, because the senator they have now is a horrible senator. He allows all the crime, all the borders. You have open borders. I mean, his whole philosophy is a disaster. That's not representative of the people of Georgia. I know the people of Georgia. I won Georgia 3 times, but they say twice. Okay, I won it very big the last time, and I won it big the first time, and I won it big the second time. But we had criminals that didn't allow. I mean, I hope they're going to go into that. I hope they go into the votes which are being stored in Fulton County, and take a real look at those votes, okay? Because I won it the second time too. But I know Georgia very well. I love Georgia. Those people are great, and they deserve a good senator, because the man they have now is a weak, ineffective person. Okay.
By the way, you won Georgia 3 times.
Yeah, I agree. Do you agree with me?
I
and
do.
He's the media.
For someone that
spends
a lot of time in Georgia, I believe you won that.
Yeah, okay.
So that, of course, is Brian Glenn of Real America's Voice, who I believe is dating Marjorie Taylor Greene. Pretty sure.
I missed that press conference. What was that map of that he had on his desk?
Oh, we'll get. I got more from it. I got more.
Okay.
I got more from it. So the Georgia thing is interesting, because he specifically mentions Fulton County. Now, this is obviously something Ash and I have covered on Why We Vote extensively. I've written about extensively. There's a lot happening in Fulton County. The state election board just subpoenaed 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, just subpoenaed all the physical paper ballots in Fulton County. Marjorie Taylor Greene sent a formal request to the DOJ to investigate Georgia 2020 election, specifically State Election Board Complaint 2023-025, which was written by Kevin Moncla and Joe Rossi. And that's the one that 17,852 votes that are no origin of them whatsoever. They have no physical paper ballot. There's no record of those votes being cast. There's 10 tabulators that have no record of any custody in Fulton County. There's no record of those 10 tabulators. Those accounted for 20,000 votes. There's over 40,000 votes that have no accounting whatsoever. And so Ed Martin, right, the weaponization at the DOJ, also sent a letter to the judge in Fulton County saying that he needs to see the physical paper ballots. So there is going to be something that comes out in Fulton County. And I think when that domino falls, I think all of the dominoes fall. And it's going to happen very soon. I think. That's just my take.
Either Georgia or Colorado.
No, it's going to be Georgia. I think it's going to be Georgia. I think the next most obvious state, in my opinion, is Arizona. Yeah, Arizona. But I think it's going to be Georgia. And only because they have so much already going in Georgia, like so much already on the, front of mind, as Jen Psaki would say. So this is what the press conference was ultimately about. Check this clip out.
A sweeping law enforcement effort known as
Hey, we don't need to listen to it on 1 1/4, 3/4 speed.
Operation Summer Heat. We were in many cities that people didn't know about. We kept it a little quiet, and it had a big impact, and you'll hear that in a second. But over the past few months, FBI officers in all 50 states made crushing violent crime a top enforcement priority. That's what they did, rounding up and arresting thousands of the most violent and dangerous criminals. And these are among the most dangerous and violent people in the world. They were allowed, in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases, they were allowed in by a very foolish, actually stupid, open border policy. Just anybody could have come in. They emptied out their jails, their prisons, their mental institutions. They emptied them into our country. And the people behind me have done an incredible job, because if we didn't have that administration, it would have been so much easier. They allowed millions of people in this country that shouldn't have been allowed, including over 11,000 murderers, half of whom murdered more than one person. And many of them are gone now, or they're put in prison, because we don't want to have them come back. So we literally put them in our prison, which we don't want to do. But we bring them back to their countries. Working with state and local partners, the FBI arrested over 8,000 violent criminals during the course of this period. In major cities like in New Orleans, Nashville, we saw a 250% increase in arrests. And we really went after the bad ones. These include 725 individuals wanted for violent crimes against children and murderers. These arrests are in addition to the work of our historic federal task forces that make DC Safe Task Force has been unbelievable. I mean, the job they've done, it's incredible. And it's been so nice, because so many people, they're going out to dinner and they're having dinners. They didn't go out for 4 years. And now they're going out 3 times a week. Restaurants are opening. Restaurants are full. And usually that means a lot of good things. But restaurants that would close are now opening up. And everybody's happy. It's nobody's ever seen anything like it, actually. And everybody feels safe. You can have a child walk right through the middle of Washington, D.C., and nothing's going to happen. We were losing more than one person a week in Washington. They're being killed on an average of over one a week. The Make D.C. Safe Task Force has been incredible. And the Make Memphis Safe Task Force is having very similar results.
All right. So Operation Summer Heat, conducted very discreetly, he says. I think that's fascinating. So while everybody's focused on Chicago and Portland and everything else and all the meltdowns, they're doing the work behind the scenes and keeping the pressure, keeping the eyeballs off of them and all the lunatic leftists screaming and standing in front of the trucks and everything else. All that's gone. 700 and just real quick, he says 725. Just the News reported 792 of these 8,000 people arrested were charged with violent crimes against children. That's almost 10%, 1 in 10. That's a big deal. I'm all for that.
It is. And if people were paying attention, they didn't keep this a secret.
Right.
Bongino and Cash, every couple weeks, came out and said, "You're not seeing everything we're doing, but we're doing it the right way. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I highlighted it on multiple shows. Why? Because this is the way real police work is done, and we are seeing the fruits of that, and it's a solid thing. What do they say? These pedophiles victimize how many kids before they're ever caught? So when you have 10% of these guys that are caught, you're talking the ripple effect of people that are not going to be victims in the future is I mean, it's massive. It's a very big deal, man.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. This is what we signed up for. This is what we voted for, right? We got another interesting disclosure from President Trump that has the mainstream media melting down because he's acknowledging CIA operations. Check this out.
Thank you. Curious, why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela? And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged
Well, I can't
drug
do
busts in
that,
the
but
Caribbean?
I authorized for two reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And as soon as I heard that, I said, a lot of these countries, they're not the only country, but they're the worst abuser. And they've entered they've allowed thousands and thousands of prisoners, mental institution, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, emptied out into the United States. We're bringing them back. But that's a really bad, and they did it at a level that probably not, many countries have done it, but not like Venezuela. They were down and dirty. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Does the CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer?
What a fascinating response.
Freaking dude, this verbal judo, bro. Verbal judo is what Trump's good at. Now, I am going to say two things real quick. If you were watching DEFCON 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we told you guys that was going down in Venezuela. So I point that out for the accuracy. The other thing, and I saw somebody had brought it up in the chat, and I don't know if it was you, Brian, or sorry, man, my throat was itching there. I don't know if you're the moderator or someone else, but there was someone spamming the chat.
I did that. You're not going to spam the chat. I don't care what you say. You're just not going to sit there and say the same thing over and over and over. Clearly a bot. So whatever.
Yeah. So I was glad you caught it because I was going to tell you or someone to just snipe them, get them out. The other thing is what was brought up in the chat. Trump using the word safe here. In the Q After Hours show.
We got you. Go ahead.
All right. in the Q After Hours show, it's me, Josh, and Brad Zerbel, Codex 911 producer. If you guys are not figuring out which Brad we're talking about. And during the show, we were talking about a specific topic. And then in real time, Gavino starts to post exactly about those things we're talking about. So we're like, holy smokes, right? And there's, you guys can go watch the clip to see the specifics of it. But in that, a little bit later on in that conversation, we're just like, sometimes you want to see something, so maybe you're making the pieces fit. Although there was just, too many coincidences there to, for a bit to be a statistical anomaly, right? So then I said, can you give us a post tomorrow with the word safe in it? This was regarding, because Trump was going to be going to Israel and Egypt. Can we get a post? I go, sooner than later would be better, but can you get it to us? And then lo and behold, while I'm doing my show, the audience is just like, look at what the Trump just posted. And literally started in that first sentence, bringing up safe into it. What's that?
Very safe.
Oh, very safe. So I hope you guys are watching Badlands shows because you're going to hear what you need to hear on these shows.
That's very interesting. I think it's fascinating that President Trump, the only thing that would have been better than the way he handled that question about sending the CIA into Venezuela is if he said, yeah, and I'm the only one that will admit it. We've been doing it for years and years and years and years. Like, that would have been the only thing that would have melted them down more than him admitting that. If he came out and said, yeah, you guys act like this is something new. Like, this has been going on forever. If you haven't watched Alpha and Colonel Towner talking about this, it's been going on forever. But the ending there, when he's like, do you have the authority to take out Maduro? And he's like, well, that's a really dumb question. Actually, it'd be dumb for me to answer it. It's not a dumb question. That is signal, bro. That's like saying, yes, you guys should be asking these questions. Do we take out world leaders? Have we taken out world leaders? Have we assassinated politicians? Have we assassinated influential people? You should be asking these questions, but it would be stupid if I answered it. Man.
Verbal judo, bro. The guy's a legend. The guy's a legend. Our great grandkids, when they read the stuff, they're gonna be like, "There's no way he said that." Like, no way, he did.
Well, you know, no, I disavow that statement, Alpha. If our grandkids are looking back at this and saying, "There's no way he said that," we failed. Our grandkids should be looking at it and saying, that is exactly what the president should be answering. He should be held accountable for all of this. There should be accountability for this. So
well, I'm not just talking about this statement. I mean, this one included, but I'm talking about just his general rhetoric. Because there's never going to be a politician or a president after him that's going to speak like he does. And that's why, even though our country will be in a better position, a lot better position decades from now, you can never mimic Trump. You can't. And I think there's people that are going to try, and I think it's actually going to hurt them, because you cannot mimic Trump. And that's what's going to make it so hard for people to believe. They'll be like, that's too savage. Like, that is just way too savage. But
all right, so let's jump into this post here from Mario Nafal. U.S. bombers flex nuclear muscle near Venezuela. First off, totally clickbait headline. U.S. bombers flex nuclear muscle because they're B-52s. In a sky-shattering flex that screams regime-crushing thunder, 2 U.S. Air Force B-52 Stratofortress bombers, behemoths, blitzed the southern Caribbean just 100 to 240 miles from Caracas. They orbited for hours in a blatant missile drill that has Maduro's dictatorship sweating apocalypse. I mean, I think AI wrote this. Venezuelan F-16 scrambled like cornered rats, echoes of Trump's anti-narco hammer. Okay, we can stop there. Basically, Trump flew some B-52s off the coast of Venezuela, out of Shreveport, Louisiana, and Maduro scrambled some F-16s just to be sure, which, again, we would have done the same thing. When Russia flies their bombers too close to Alaska, we do the same exact thing. What I thought was really interesting is... do you know what Shreveport's ICAO is? Their call sign?
No, what's the call sign?
Bad. Do you know what the call sign of the bombers was?
What?
Bunny.
Nah, Bad Bunny. That is so bad.
I swear to God. Look, here are the pictures right here. Here are the pictures. Shreveport is out of bad, B-A-D. And Bunny 01 was the bomber's call sign.
Bad Bunny. That's so...
So not only is Trump posturing to show Venezuela, I don't know, whatever, we don't F around, he's putting out some subtle hints. Bad Bunny. Oh man, it's just a great time to be alive.
Next it'll be White and Rabbit.
Yeah, right. Well, that's definitely another perspective on it, White Rabbit, as opposed to, I was going more for the Bad Bunny.
Oh no, because that's funny as shit. I'm there with you.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the next meltdown. And Chris brought this up yesterday, the Pentagon and the meltdown from reporters at the Pentagon. They're leaving, I guess, in droves because nobody would sign the agreement. Yeah, exactly. As I posted today, wait, the media is leaving the Pentagon?
Yeah, success.
That's a great clip, by the way.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, success.
You know the full clip, though,
yes,
right?
Yes. Is there a black person here?
Yes.
Excuse me? Is there a black person here? Shit, you could see me, right? Is there? Yeah. Is there a black person here? And then he finds the black person. He goes, success.
Oh, you're saying a black purse.
A black purse in here? Yes. I was looking for a white person yesterday. In here yesterday.
Oh.
Hilarious. Okay. So let's get into this clip here. This is President Trump yesterday asked about the Pentagon and the press thing going on there. Hegseth's going to jump in as well. Check this out.
Restrictions on the press that reported the Pentagon, and have you spoken to Secretary Hegseth about this?
I have, yeah. Well, he's finding, I think I can speak for him. I'll let him speak for himself, but I think he finds the press to be very disruptive in terms of world peace and maybe security for our nation. Press is very dishonest. Not you, but the press is very dishonest. You have something to say?
Well, I very much appreciate the question because it was interesting to watch. We had a chance to go along on the historic trip of Middle East peace, which our generation of veterans never dreamed would be possible. So you would think that the Pentagon press corps of all press corps would be front and center across the board on wanting to give credit to the president for forging this kind of peace, and instead what they want to talk about is a policy about them, which simply says maybe the policy should look like the White House or other military installations where you have to wear a badge that identifies that you're press, or you can't just roam anywhere you want. It used to be, Mr. President, the press could go anywhere, pretty much anywhere in the Pentagon, the most classified area in the world. Or also that if they sign on to the credentialing, they're not going to try to get soldiers to break the law by giving them classified information. So it's common sense stuff, Mr. President. We're trying to make sure national security is respected, and we're proud of the policy.
You know, we have an option here, as you know, the press years ago moved into the White House. It used to be across the street. We could move them. You're lucky I'm president, because we could move them very easily across the street. They used to be there. They would have more room. We have a beautiful, nice space. You can sit all by yourselves and have fun. Instead, you walk around the White House talking to anybody that can breathe. And, you know, but I find that when it comes to war, and now our great Department of War, we have some great people over there, I think it bothers me to have soldiers and even, you know, high-ranking generals walking around with you guys on their sleeve, asking them, because they can make a mistake, and a mistake can be tragic. They can do it innocently, too. They can, you know, and they're not press people. They don't really deal with the press, so they're not really necessarily good at it, although I think it's mostly instinctual one way or the other. You're either good at things or you're not. But I could see you being bothered by that. And so you have them in an area, and you treat them fairly, but they're not allowed to go into
much like the
somebody's office and sit with them for 10 hours.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that
So here's the statement that they put out. They said, today, the Defense Department confiscated the badges of the Pentagon reporters from virtually every major media organization in America. It did this because reporters would not sign on to a new media policy over its implicit threat of criminalizing national security reporting and exposing those who sign it to potential prosecution. The Pentagon Press Association's members are still committed to reporting on the U.S. military, but make no mistake, today, October 15th, is a dark day for press freedom that raises concerns about a weakening U.S. commitment to transparency and governance, to public accountability at the Pentagon, and to free speech for all. Here's another continuation of that reporting. This is the Washington Post Pentagon reporter.
What are your colleagues saying about this right now?
Sure. So basically every single major media outlet that covers Washington, that covers the Pentagon, has said that they cannot abide by the restrictions that the Pentagon has put in place to basically trade access for oversight of all of their stories. The policy would have reporters agree not to publish any information that wasn't authorized, going beyond what's classified or unclassified, anything that's not authorized for them to report on without the Pentagon's permission. And it's just untenable for reporters across the ideological spectrum, including a number of conservative outlets.
All right. So again,
they don't even realize the trap that they walked into. And I'm not sure if you picked up on it or others that picked up on it, but I wrote something on this last year, I believe. So they're all complaining about this. But do you know that this is essentially the same policy that the IDF has with Israel?
I did not. Well, so the IDF, their policy is any reporting on national security has to be cleared by them in order to report on it. That's not the same thing they're saying here, though.
It's one of the stipulations that they have here is the oversight of the information that's going to come out. And they're not. How can you say that it's an issue when our Pentagon is laying out a set of rules? You know, like you said, there's just access restrictions, which is common sense. You know, there's a certain way, you know, there's PIOs that you're going to have to contact, you know, for certain types of information. And you're not going to be able to compromise national security. Like that's the goal of this. You have issue with your country doing it, but CNN, MSNBC, Fox, you guys do something that's even more restrictive in Israel, and you don't complain about it there. You've never mentioned it there. It's alt media that brought that to the surface.
So to me, this is what this is an attempt to combat against.
He's sick. My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid is going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night.
That's exactly what they're trying to prevent right here. They're trying to prevent an anonymous source, you know, who's familiar with the matter, who also knows somebody. That's what they're getting at right now. And President Trump was saying, you know, these press people, they have this type of access. Now, I don't know how they're getting these stories. I don't ever want to know what the press inside of DC is actually like. I don't want to know, you know, like Madison Cawthorn, right, got kicked out of Congress essentially for talking about cocaine-fueled orgies. You know, when President Trump says, I don't want a reporter in somebody's office for 10 hours, what's going on in that office for 10 hours? You know, it's not lost on me, and I'm just going to throw this out there. It's not lost on me that a lot of these reporters, both male and female, are very attractive. And I'll leave that at that. But you're able to coerce and manipulate these people, and President Trump alluded to that, into committing criminal acts, giving you classified intel that you're not supposed to be reporting on. And there is OPSEC. And you know, I think our government absolutely overclassifies 100%. There's no question about it whatsoever. But that's the one building where overclassification, you have lives that are on the line if it's not. You know, I'd much rather other things be, you know, looked at in terms of scrutinizing the overclassification. The Pentagon is not necessarily one of them yet.
No, I agree with you completely.
By the way, I just want to play this clip here. Brian Stelter, or whatever, the naked guy.
Reporters have been showing up at the Pentagon today and handing in their press passes. This is an extraordinary moment showing that the Pentagon is not changing, not backing away from this drastic, radical new policy. And the news outlets, the reporters, the editors, the media lawyers who said this is unacceptable, they're not changing their tune either. So all the major networks, all the major wire service and newspaper reporters who cover the Pentagon day in, day out are turning in their credentials. And essentially, as of tomorrow, you won't have those journalists able to work out of the Pentagon complex anymore.
Yeah, success.
Again,
you know, some of the talking points that are being pushed on social media is, well, then how's there going to be accountability when they do wrong? This has zero impact on the whistleblower act that exists. If whistleblowers want to do, you know, if they're going to do whistleblowing, there's still an SOP for them to do these things. It's just going to prevent that stuff from getting into the wrong hands and manipulating it and creating an issue of national security.
Again, you know, I'm all for, you know, exposing corruption, you know, law breaking, that kind of stuff. And so, you know, and there has been a lot of good reporting that's come out of the Pentagon. I remember, I can't remember who it was, but he was an AP reporter, and it was during the Biden administration. And it was, I think it was having to deal with the U.S. authorizing us to give certain weapons to Ukraine. And he was in the briefing right there, and he asked, who was the press secretary during Biden? What was the guy's name? Oh, he was a weasel looking guy. But anyways, he asked him, he said, you know, you're telling us that there's declassified report that we can look at that's going to validate everything you're saying right here. Where can we look at that report? And he's like, I'm telling you right now that this is what it says. And he's like, yeah. But where can we look at the report? It's declassified. Where can we look at it? And he's like, I'm telling you right now what's in the report. He's like, no. I don't trust you. He doesn't say this outright. I don't trust you. I want to see the actual report. Where can I look at that report? And they just keep going round and round on this. And I'm like, I'm watching this and the guy's got his mask on and everything. And I'm like, that is a good journalist. There's not many of them left, but that is a good journalist. This is a guy who's saying, I want the source documents. I want to read what you're telling me. I'm not just taking your word for it. We don't have that anymore. There's a handful of them out there. Catherine Herridge is one of them. This guy, I would give him credit for that, for being one of them. Most of these people just, you say whatever you want me to say, I will write it. And that's why we're the Mockingbird media.
Amen.
I don't think it was Kirby. I see R.O. Poppy said Kirby. Let me see. Jake Kirby, right? Or is that the, no, that's the soccer player. What was his name? Who was Pentagon press secretary during Biden? I'll just ask that. I can't remember his name. Wow.
Torres said John Kirby.
John Kirby. There you go. Yes, Kirby joined the White House's National Security Council. That's who it was. Okay, so he was National Security Council coordinator for strategic communications. And that's who it was that I'm thinking of. Okay, so thank you for that. All right, we can. Oh, I guess I should just highlight. Pete Hegseth says the Pentagon access is a privilege, not a right. So here is Department of War press credentialing for dummies. Press no longer roams free. Press must wear a visible badge, and credentialed press no longer permitted to solicit criminal acts. In other words, you can't go in there and ask people to give you classified information. You can ask, but you can't. Like once they say like that's classified, you can't solicit classification and classified materials. And it's not lost on me that he specifically used the term solicit, because there's another term that solicit is often crime that solicit is often used with, and we'll just leave that at that. I'm telling you, like, I know people are probably going to be like, did Canncon really just say that they sell sex for secrets? Yes, they do. Madison Cawthorn tried to warn us. Everything there, that's capital, power, all of it. It's all capital, political capital, blackmail.
I mean, they literally leaked video or photo of someone getting plowed in Congress,
in the Senate, a Senate aide. Yeah. And you know what? That was probably blackmail until it wasn't. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. This is all blackmail. That's the best capital in all of Washington, D.C. is blackmail. And if you can get some junior lieutenant or some captain to sleep with you or to do something, or you get them on the record, or you get them saying something, whatever it could be, they should not, the press should not have free roam of a military installation. And the Pentagon is a military installation.
That shit wouldn't work on Alpha.
Hell,
we got
it. Be like, I don't care. Put it out there.
We have CCTV footage or hidden camera footage of that ginger giving you fellatio. Like, oh, post that shit, bro.
You'd be like, dude, it's on my OnlyFans already. Too late. I made a cool mill off of that.
Can you make it even more clear? Because Can didn't believe me when I told him that story. So when you guys post that, if you just make it a little bit more clear.
I'll be watching. I'll be like, son of a bitch. And you'll just tap me and be like, told you, man. All right. Next story, guys. Oh, man. We're going to hell. From the Wall Street Journal, blue states are setting up a shadow public health alliance to counter RFK Jr. They warned us about this, right? They warned us about this. They warned us about the shadow government. They sat there. The congressman from North Carolina who did not run for another term was the guinea pig, or the patsy that was put out there in front of Congress to say, let's set up an alternative government. Well, now they're doing it. And I'll tell you what, I don't object to it. And I'll tell you why. Let's read. Governors across 15 states, including New York, California, and North Carolina, are forming a new public health alliance to detect and respond to diseases and disease threats, saying that federal funding cuts and policy changes by the Trump administration are putting their citizens at risk and forcing them to find alternatives. The state leaders, all Democrats, will join forces to help one another prepare for pandemics, track infectious disease, write public health guidelines, share expertise on preventative care, and buy vaccine supplies in bulk. Now, before I keep going, Alpha, why would I be in favor of this?
Because you want red states to be able to do the same thing with different concerns that we may have.
Very, very close. I don't want the federal government having that much control over it. This is something that should be delegated to the states. This is something, and now keep in mind, this is clearly Democrats, and these Democrats are going to put this in their own state's hands where it should be sovereignty, right? We're these United States, not the United States. We are these United States. And so now it's no longer federally funded. The federal government can no longer put a mandate across all 50 states, and it's now down at the local level. Now, what's going to happen now is you're going to have people in these blue states that are going to be like, oh, F this. I can't take this shit anymore. I'm moving to Florida, or I'm moving to Texas, or I'm moving to, Georgia or Louisiana or wherever the case might be. It's not, I know it's not ideal and it's not perfect, and they're not doing it with that intention in mind, but it's a secondary, benefit of what they're trying to do here. You cut federal funding, so we're going to handle it at the state level. Thank you. Thank you.
I do agree with what you're saying, but there still has to be some federal oversight to this.
Sure.
Because if not, you can get states like California Newsom to make it so unbearable. Mm-hmm. Because we still have compromised elections. So it's not like people can say, well, this is what you voted for. I'll tell everybody, screw you on that one. Because you think our elections are fair here, and well, we're screaming that the rest of them were compromised? No. So you can make it so unbearable that people finally leave to where you don't have to steal those elections anymore. And if you do that, based on states like California, New York, then you could start entertaining the conversation of succeeding from the union, and then really create an issue within our country as a whole. And I don't put it past them that they're probably even contemplating something like this as a contingency for the next, 10 years, 15 years, whatever the case may be. So while I do agree that I also don't want overbearing federal government, until we are all, clear as day with zero doubts that our elections are fair and transparent, we do need to make sure there's some oversight in the immediate future of moves like this too.
That's fair. Dude, free and fair elections are always the foundation of every single issue in this country that has to do with our government. If we don't have free and fair elections, then it is not a government of, for, and by the people. And I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that we have free and fair elections. So that is a very fair, little kind of asterisk on this. But again, this is exactly this is a secondary benefit to them doing this, is that it's taking away the federal power that they should not have had. Remember, it was the federal government, it was the Faucis and the Birxes and that made the vaccine mandates, that made for federal employees and put pressure on the states to enforce these mandates. And you had red governors that pushed back against it, but you had blue governors that bought into it. And guess what happened? If it became too much for the people in those blue states to leave, they left. And that's why in the census, we saw massive gains for Florida, for Texas, for Ohio. And we saw massive losses for California, New York, Illinois. We saw, a big swing in political and capital, in terms of representation. But so getting back into it, it says the Governor's Public Health Alliance is the latest and so far the largest move to create an alternative public health universe outside the federal government. More doctors, policymakers, and state leaders are alarmed by cuts in federal funding for global and domestic health programs. Talking about the World Health Organization, which can kick rocks, as well as public health expertise at the CDC and the Center for Disease Control. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and this is where I do have a problem with it. New limitations set by the FDA and a vaccine advisory panel backed by Kennedy on who are recommended for the COVID-19 vaccine prompted some governors to issue emergency orders clarifying that pharmacists may administer the vaccine without a doctor's prescription. I got ahead of myself. That's not what I was where I want to draw limitations, but I thought this was pure propaganda, because Wall Street Journal, now granted, they're supposed to be center right. They're not. They're propaganda mockingbird mouthpieces. They make this big deal like the governors had to issue an emergency order of the COVID vaccine policy, telling people that pharmacists may administer the vaccine without a prescription. That wasn't the policy. The policy was not that you had to have a prescription. The policy was that you had to consult with your doctor, which you should always do before you take any medication. Always consult. What does every pill out there say? Consult with your physician. Consult with your doctor. They had to put out an emergency order for that. Here's the part, Alpha. The 15 governors represent about a third of the U.S. population, said they hope to recruit more governors, particularly Republicans, to address health concerns they said traditionally have been considered nonpartisan. A nonprofit group, GovAct, will coordinate the alliance with philanthropic funding. Alpha, break that down in layman's terms.
We're going to get right back into NGOs telling us what to do.
And philanthropic funding means who?
George Soros, all those people.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Yeah, all the usual suspects. So that's where I get pissed off, is that you're doing something here that we want to see. We want to see states reclaiming their sovereignty over federal institutions. And then you turn around and you delegate all that authority, or relegate all that authority to NGOs and Bill and Melinda Gates and George Soros and the Tides Foundation and whatever other NGO that is essentially just acting at the behest of the federal government. It's like Groundhog's Day, man. Just round.
If you look at some of the third world countries where they tried doing this stuff, look at the fate that meets these doctors and organizations when that happens.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, spoiler alert, it's extremely violent.
All right, let's keep moving here. We got about half hour left, so we got to move through these pretty quick here. Judge from CBS News, judge temporarily blocks Trump administration from firing workers during government shutdown. The U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston in San Francisco said the cuts appeared to be politically motivated and were being carried out without much thought. Quote, it's very much ready, fire, aim on most of these programs, and it has a human cost, she said. It's a human cost that cannot be tolerated. She granted a temporary restraining order blocking the job cuts that she believed the evidence would ultimately show the cuts were illegal and in excess of authority. It goes on to say, in the court filing, the administration said initially that it planned to fire more than 4,100 employees across 8 agencies, but Russ Vought said that the number was a snapshot and was likely to grow. Union said the layoff notices are an illegal attempt at political pressure and retribution and are based on the false premise that a temporary funding lapse eliminates Congress's authorization of agency programs. Now, this again is a case that's going to be dismissed. And it's going to be dismissed on one very, very simple legal observation. And do you know what that might be?
Hit me with it.
It's highlighted in red. This is a judge in San Francisco. What the fuck is a judge in San Francisco doing ruling on something that is taking place in D.C.? This is judge shopping 101. This is going to a place where the judge is most likely going to be sympathetic to your cause, and this is a case that should have been brought in Washington, D.C. And
they do this routinely, though, all the freaking time.
I know. This is Supreme Court ruled on this during the very beginning of all of this. That district judges, you got to go to the district where it took place. Remember the Texas story where they tried to do it in D.C.? Now they're doing it the opposite. They're not doing it in D.C. They're doing it in Texas. This case should have been brought in D.C., and I think it's going to get dismissed just because of that simple fact alone. Then we can argue about whether or not Russ Vought has the authority to do that, and I think he absolutely does. And I apologize for dropping an F-bomb right there, but I thought it was appropriate. So there we go. I'm not apologizing. What am I talking about? We don't apologize.
Never apologize to them.
Never apologize. All right, another story here. This one's from Reuters. U.S. judge extends block on Trump deploying National Guard in Portland, Oregon. District Judge Karen Immergut acted as the administration awaits a ruling from a 3-judge panel on the San Francisco-based 9th Circuit of Appeals on whether to lift the order allowing Trump to deploy the National Guard troops. Immergut issued the decision against the administration on October 4th and 5th, so a little over a week ago. Almost 2 weeks ago, I should say. First ruling that Trump could not take over Oregon's National Guard, and then ruling that he could not circumvent that decision by calling in National Guard troops from other states. Here's the problem with this case. The judge at the time said there was no evidence that recent protests in Portland rose to the level of a rebellion or seriously interfered with law enforcement. That is a judge trying to act as the commander-in-chief, the president, the executive, the chief executive law enforcement officer in the United States, and trying to define something that is not defined. We talked about this when we covered the Insurrection Act, straight from the Brennan Center, no friend of President Trump, saying that the Insurrection Act, there is no definition of rebellion, insurgency, whatever uprising. There's no definitions of this. So for a judge to come in there and say, well, I don't think the president's judgment on what constitutes a rebellion is good enough, that's not your job. That is not your job. So go ahead. I'll let you chime in.
You covered it. Perfectly. And you've had, if I'm trying to think, it was recently where the Supreme Court has kind of already made this statement that they can't go and dictate the president's understanding of specific things. And I'm trying to remember which one it was. It's been in the last month.
I'm trying to remember.
I'll try to look it up right now, but these judges don't need to just have their arguments overturned. They need to be removed from the bench.
Yes, they do. I mean, you have judges that are outright legislating from the bench,
and the thing about it, it's strategic. You're not talking about a one-off. You're talking about, if you look back to what were these, where were these judges, attorneys at, or DAs at prior to taking the bench, and who were they running against, and who funded their campaign? Again, it comes back to that name everybody's probably tired of hearing, but the Soros. So when you see a strategic implant into our judicial system, and these same people that are back are now trying to, control the president, through the bench, something needs to be done about that. That is a hell of a lot quicker than just overturning their decisions. Like, it needs to be addressed. It's a domestic threat.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. You're exactly right. And that's something that I can't remember the case now that they,
you know which one I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly. Me and Ash talk about it. If Ash was in the chat, but she's busy today. I actually tried to get her to cover for you when your internet was down, but I'm trying to remember the case. Does somebody in our chat remember where they kind of reined in the judges against saying, like, you're trying to?
I want to say it was involved with the deporting stuff, but I'm not positive.
I think was it the Abrego Garcia case? No.
I'm thinking it was one of those. I'm just not positive.
Were they because that was where, when President Trump declared Tren de Aragua a foreign terrorist organization, and I've always said that the only way that this judge could rule on this, the only thing that they could rule on, is challenging whether or not Tren de Aragua was a terrorist organization, not ruling on whether or not the person is a member of Tren de Aragua. I think that it's something along those. All right.
I think it was. Or maybe it was the fact when they were ordering them to bring them back. I remember it was something in that vicinity. I just don't remember exactly what it was.
All right. Well, it is what it is. We'll figure it out. Where do I want to go next? We can cover this story real quick since we're talking about the courts. This is
real quick before I go. I like D-Dallied, I think is the handle. It said it's just a color revolution in robes. 100%. 100%.
We mentioned that if, like, judges should have, like, score sheets or something, that if their decisions get overturned by a court of appeals or the Supreme Court, and it's like either unanimous or highly, like in SCOTUS, right, it would be like 7-2 decision or an 8-1 decision, that judge should be investigated. Like, there should be, because these judges, they got to know that judge right there is literally trying to not legislate, but be the executor of the law enforcement and military in this country by saying that this doesn't rise to the level of a rebellion. That's not your job. That is not your job. There is no definition in the Insurrection Act to that. So we'll see, man. Let's jump into this story just briefly. Warrantless immigration arrest banned at Cook County Courthouse under new order. Totally misleading headline. It's just reaffirmed. It's already banned. You can't do that. You can't go into a courthouse and arrest people without a warrant. So I don't know, but Cook County Chief Judge signed an order banning federal immigration agents from arresting people around local courthouses without a warrant. Timothy Evans signed a new general order which reaffirms the common law privilege against civil arrest while attending court. Civil arrest. Okay, that's the key word. The order states that no one attending a court proceeding in which they are a party, witness, or potential witness will be subjected to a civil arrest in or around the courthouse, except in cases where there is a judicial warrant or an order authorizing that arrest. Now, it does go on to say this does not include violent criminals. So, in other words, you can't go in there and just walk up to somebody randomly and say, "Are you an illegal?" No. Okay, you're arrested. That would be a civil arrest because there is, a civil component to the immigration clause. There is criminal components as well. So that's all this is doing. It's such a stupid story.
It's hype. That's all it is. It's just to push the agenda that they're trying to sell. That's all.
Bingo. We'll cover this one real quick. This one's from the Gateway Pundit. Rules for thee, fraud for me. Letitia James prosecuted mortgage fraud case mirroring the charges against her. Let's jump over to the actual press release that Letitia James, who's now under indictment, criminal indictment. This is the press release she put out in 2019. Attorney General James and State Police Superintendent Corlett announced convictions of Brooklyn couple for $1.3 million mortgage fraud and money laundering scheme. So before we do that, I went over to Perplexity. All right. It says download Comet. I already have Comet. And I asked it, which is, our sponsor for today. Great program. It says she falsely claimed on her loan application that the house that she bought would serve as her secondary residence, when in reality, she rented that property out to family, violating the mortgage's owner occupancy clause. This allowed her to secure a favorable loan term, including a lower mortgage interest rate and a higher seller credit, typically reserved for second homes rather than investment properties. This saved her approximately $18,933. So we'll just call it $19,000. So we jump back into this story, and you're like, "Oh, but Canncon, that's $1.3 million. You're talking about $1.3 million versus $18,000 or $19,000. Okay. Letitia James announced the sentencing of John F. Iacono to 4 to 8 years in state prison. The co-defendants were convicted of mortgage fraud, money laundering, and a scheme to defraud after a joint investigation. And then what does it say right here? They tax returns in order to solicit over $1.3 million in loans. So if you wanted to, because I had this debate with myself before I did this. I was like, hold on, we're comparing $1.3 million to $19,000. Yeah, but the $19,000 is what she actually saved, not what the loans were for. This is what the loans were for, not what they actually saved or made from it. So there's a major difference there in how those things are being reported. So, the article doesn't actually say how much money they made off of this deal as a result. So anyways, I thought that was really I tripped myself up and almost psyched myself out of not covering this story, because I was like, this is apples to lug nuts, but it's really not.
It's not. I actually didn't catch that until you reaffirmed it. I was just like, oh shit, I see what you're talking about, the loan versus the savings. So then I'm curious, for someone in the chat that maybe has some real estate knowledge, what is the spectrum of, a conservative estimate on what that loan would have been like to save, almost $19,000. I'm curious to that.
Well, I mean, it's public record how much she paid for the property, but I would say that the property, given its location, is probably, it's definitely going to be six figures at least, potentially more. And if the DOJ wanted to make a a good comparison between those two cases, they would put how much the loan she obtained was for rather than how much she saved. Now, Perplexity is the one that put how much she saved in the prompt. It's not, I didn't ask it how much the property was worth. I guess I could. Hold on. How much did Letitia James buy the property in question in her indictment for? Let's see. My Perplexity loves me. It's able to it's able to what would the word be? It's able to
interpret your misspellings.
All right. So wait, it says the property of the center of the indictment. Okay, so it's only $137,000. So it's still not a whole lot of money, but that just goes to show you how much money she actually potentially ripped off. If the property was $137,000 and she saved $19,000,
that's a significant amount for that price.
That's a huge amount. I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, that's what, over 25% or close to 25%.
It's a little 10% would be 13,000, so it's about, I don't know, it's probably about 15%. But that's a big deal. 15% savings on buying a home. That's the difference. At that 1.3 million, that means that those guys would have made $180,000 in savings off that 1.3 million. So it's a big deal. All right, this will be our last story of the day, just because I think this is hilarious, and I love to see the meltdown. Although there's not a meltdown here necessarily, but the midterms are coming up, and they're starting to realize that Democrats are absolutely awful. Not that Republicans are any better. What is Harry Enton doing in this picture right here? Anyways, let's play this clip.
Okay, so, if you go back 6 months ago, you go back to April, Kate Baldwin, what were we looking at? Well, we were looking at the Democrats with a very clear shot of taking control of the U.S. House of Representatives, according to the Kalshi prediction market odds. We saw them in an 83% chance. But those odds have gone plummeting down. Now we're talking about just a 63% chance, while the GOP's chances up like a rocket, up like gold, up from 17% to now a 37% chance. So we'll look like a pretty clear likely Democratic win in the House come next year. Has become much closer to a toss-up at this point, although still slightly leaning Democratic.
What's changed? What do you think?
Okay, what has changed? Well, why don't we just take a look at the national picture first? Take a look at voters and how they're feeling about things. And we can take a look at the generic congressional ballot. And I want to take a look.
Go ahead.
Just if you can go back the frame to the prior numbers.
Right there?
Yeah, so it's not behind me that the GOP is at 17%. And that when you do the math on the Dems and you mirror it, it's 9/11. just throwing it out there.
Oh, interesting.
Voters and how they're feeling about things. And we can take a look at the generic congressional ballot. And I want to take a look and compare it to 2017, 2018, right? Because that's sort of the baseline. That was, of course, the first Trump term. That was where Democrats were sort of keeping pace. You go back to April, look at the generic congressional ballot. What you see? You see +3 Democrats in 2025 in April. You see +3 Democrats back in April of 2017. Now jump over to this side of the screen. What happens? Well, the Democrats are no longer keeping pace with the pace that they were setting back in 2017, 2018. You look back in 2017, you saw that the Democrats had leaped up to an 8-point advantage. I remember covering this. I remember a lot of folks, including myself, saying, you know what? Republicans look pretty decent right now in terms of the fact that they had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency, but things were likely going to flip. And I was looking for the same signs this year. The bottom line is it hasn't happened, Kate Baldwin. It hasn't happened. Democrats have stayed basically steady. They have fallen off the pace. Democrats were way out ahead back in 2017 on the generic congressional ballot. And now we're basically looking at Democrats ahead. But again, they are so far in back of the pace that they set back there. And so I think what a lot of folks are seeing, folks like myself, are saying, wait a minute, given what we might be seeing in redistricting, is this +3 going to be enough, Kate Baldwin?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. One change from that cycle is also this mid-decade redistricting effort that we've been covering so much. Add that in, and what do you get?
Okay, so we add that, and we take a look at the national picture, but then we, of course, taking a look at the state legislators, right? They are potentially changing things, and there are two things that are going on here. First off, net mid-decade redistricting gains. If both sides max out at this point, there are more Republican gains possible than Democratic gains. Yes, the Democrats might try to counter a Texas and a California, but you go along in the different states and basically Democrats run out of room where Republicans are able to gain and gain and gain. If both sides max out, we're probably looking at a GOP gain of +7 House seats. That doesn't even take into account the potential gutting of the VRA that is right now going to be in front of the Supreme Court. If you add that in, you could be looking...
The Voting Rights Act.
What? Yes,
Voting
exactly
Rights.
right. The Voting Rights Act. If you add that in, then you could be looking about adding 10, 12, 15, 17 on top of this 7 seats. So I think a lot of folks like myself are looking at this. We're seeing, hey, wait a minute. Those national polls are Democrats are not gaining the way that we expected. Then you add in the fact that the state legislators are adding potentially more GOP seats like they've already done down in Texas, like they've done in Missouri. And then you add in the potential gutting of the VRA. And all of a sudden, it becomes much more difficult for Democrats to gain.
All right, we can end that there. That was a long clip. I apologize for that. I just want to show you this. Have you seen this clip here? This is horrifying.
Honestly, I was speechless when I woke up to your voice. Now you tell me how you've been feeling. Honestly,
This is why the Democrats are losing, folks. They're not that the Republicans are any better. I want to reiterate that over and over and over again. But these people are retards. These people are literally retarded. What the is this woman doing? Man, whatever. POV going to vote to reopen the government and remembering Republicans went on vacation to keep it closed.
Keep that shit closed.
That's why they're going to lose. That's why they're going to lose. It has nothing to do with whatever Harry Enton talked about right there. I mean, of course, elections are fake and gay. 100% agree with that. But
keep it closed, baby. Keep it closed.
I'm with you, man. Keep it freaking closed. Rookie Irish. It's a man, baby. Yeah.
Just let Trump show that we can fund all these programs with revenue from the tariffs. That way we can get rid of the Federal Reserve too.
Keep it going, man. All right, guys. That is going to wrap up the show. We'll get into Rumble rants here. We do have Lee Walden says time for the reckoning where divine justice prevails, and that includes Gitmo. F around, find out. Amen. Rave Daddy 523. My last name is Fag, and I love to joke with friends about it. But if a friend calls me faggot, that friendship is done. Yeah, again, I think the word faggot, I'm not opposed to it, but it is more of an aggressive connotation to it. And so if somebody does say that, like, I don't know. That is cool that you have a sense of humor about having a last name Fag. So there's that. AH13. So in other words, by the way, you would never make it in the Marine Corps.
That's exactly what was going through my brain. Like all the boot camp recruit.
Boot camp would have been miserable. I would have changed my name before I went to boot camp. No offense, man. No offense. But if my last name was Fag before I went to boot camp, Private Fag.
I just like the wedding ceremony. I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Fag.
Yeah. AH13. So in other words, the CIA, aka journalists, were confronted with the decision and they showed themselves out the door. Pretty much. One last joke on the fag thing. That's like a case where the man takes the woman's name in that marriage.
It's just like the father-in-law, talking to his buddies at work.
My daughter ain't gonna be named no fag.
No. Oh, your daughter's getting married? Yeah, she's marrying a fag.
All right, man. What you got coming up?
You told us, bro. Like, what'd you expect? You told a bunch of Marines that your last name's Fag. Like, we're just not gonna let that go. We're gonna bring that up again tonight on Sit Rep. Like, you can count on it.
Yes, we've got Sit Rep tonight, so be sure to tune into that at 9 p.m. What else you got coming up, brother?
I love our audience, but sometimes y'all don't think this through. You get caught in the emotion and you don't think it through.
Where are you going? Don't get me kicked off.
No, I'm just saying, man. No, look forward to seeing everybody. Look forward to seeing everybody tonight. Are we doing Guard exclusive today?
Yes, at 2:30 p.m., guys.
Okay.
So yeah, make sure to tune into that. Also, I'm going to be on, I think it's Lindell TV today at 4 p.m. I will be on with Pat Colbeck talking about elections.
Right on.
Yeah. So be sure to tune into that if you'd like, or whatever's going on here at Badlands. We've also got Sit Rep tonight. And then I'm actually going to record some shorts, not shorts, but I'm not going to label them as shorts, but I'm getting engaged a little bit with the YouTube. So I'll be uploading some shorts.
Good news. Dude, remember I said they reinstated number 2 and 3?
Yeah.
They reinstated my original.
Nice.
It's not as big as the one you guys had because this was in the very beginning, but it's like around 4,000 people. Right at, well, it was a little bit more than that, but all I got back was about 4,000. I think it was like a little over 6. So I was getting close to 7, which for me that was a lot, especially back then. But yeah, that one took a little longer to approve, but they approved it.
Well, we'll have to do some like exclusive streams. Like I'm not getting rid of Rumble ever, like period.
No. Nope.
But we do need to grow the YouTube channels up because that is where so last night I did the stream, right? And I had Nick Moseder, Bahizzi, Marcus D, like all my old friends joined me on the stream. It was a good time, just reminiscing and all that stuff. But one of the things I asked my chat, like all these people were like, holy crap, I got a notification for Canncon. And I was like, I haven't seen Canncon in 4 years. And, people didn't know that I'm at Badlands now. People didn't know that I'm writing for Gateway Pundit now. Like they didn't know all these things that were going on. And so I was like, you know what? Like this is an untapped market that has never heard some of the things that we've been talking about for years over here on Rumble, for years on Badlands, for years on our own platforms. And now that we're able to bring this information into the normie sphere of YouTube, we have to capitalize on that. We have to do this. And I know people are like, oh, don't give in to YouTube. What do you want me to do? You want me to essentially self-censor ourselves by not being able to reach a crowd that has no idea that this other reality exists?
You always take ground. In any war, you take ground.
Yes, we are taking ground. That's exactly what we're doing. It's just like when Truth and Twitter, when Elon bought X, and I said Truth will be our home, X is the battlefield. You retreat back to your FOB, to your forward operating base when you need to rest and recover. Same thing here. Rumble is our home, but we got to go out into the battlefield. So if you're not following us, what's your new YouTube, man?
Well, my old new
your
YouTube,
old one.
I think it's let me grab it. It's either the Alpha Warrior Show or the Alpha Warrior Show. This is back when you could actually have your handle, like it was youtube.com/ and you had your handle. It is the Alpha Warrior Show. Let me see. Let me go your channel.
All right. So you guys can
it is youtube.com/ @the Alpha Warrior Show.
Okay, there you go. So give Alpha a follow. You can follow mine, youtube.com/ is it at Canncon Actual? Is that actually how it goes?
In the link it has.
Wow, that does work. It's so you can type in youtube.com/ Canncon1 with one N, CANCON1, or you can type youtube.com/ @Canncon Actual. So both of those work. And at the Alpha Warrior Show, give us follows over there. And again, these are people that haven't. So many people did not know Badlands existed and that I was on Badlands. And so this is going to be some awesome cross pollination here, and we got to get this thing going.
Did you go through your videos listed? I'm curious to see if they did to you what they did to me.
They took some of mine down. I lost about 2/3 of my followers. Yeah,
it's almost like before they reinstated it, you can't play this one, you can't play this one, you can't play this one, you can't play this one. I was like, baby steps. The channel's back, baby steps. But there was a shitload of videos that they hit it with something, whether it was copyright, whether it was bullying abuse, whether it was all these different things. So I was just like, you know what, one step at a time.
Yeah, and I know Jordan got all of his channels back. Brad got his channels back. Abby got her channels back. I don't know who else has gotten channels back that I've heard of. I think John had said that Badlands got all their channels back because we had like 7 of them at Badlands. And we haven't been kicked off once on Badlands. Ship last night, Shipwreck was streaming to here. She commented on my post that, now we're allowed to stream to YouTube. It's like, I've been streaming to YouTube for a while, and I was the one that always got us kicked off. So,
well, if you're somebody that has a podcast and you never had one on YouTube, I have like 7 channels. Like I said, the three backups have been approved so far. And so I'm going to keep one, but I'll start giving some of these other channels away that have like 1,000 and 800, 1,200 on them for people that want them. Because he's going to change the name and I'll just delete all my old stuff off of it. You have an audience. Get handed an audience. Good people.
All right, guys. Well, be sure, before we get out of here, be sure to get your GART tickets. There is going to be an exclusive GART stream today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, I believe. I see Jackie. Jackie was in the YouTube chat. Her and Christy, and I think Cece was in there as well, chatting it up and getting down with the old time Canncon folks. Anyways, but Cocoa Beach coming up here, and it's going to be a good time. We're going to celebrate
right around the corner.
50th birthday. Yeah, the Navy. By the way, happy birthday to the Navy. I wasn't on Monday because I was traveling, but happy 250th to the Navy. We make fun of you guys incessantly, and we'll always make fun of you. But happy birthday! You guys deserve a whole lot of cake. Seamen deserve cake.
Happy birthday to the seamen.
Happy birthday, seamen. 250-year-old seamen, guys.
Go blow those candles.
Sit rep's gonna be lit tonight, guys. Take care.
They say confidence starts with a smooth skin. And baby, Soft Disclosure Lotion delivers.
I swear by this stuff. Like, I kid you guys not. This is the first lotion I've ever had in my entire life that, like, I don't get ashy after I put it on any part of my body. Like, my hands are always dry, and my hands have not gotten ashy without, like, rinsing them through water and washing them with soap since I started putting Soft Disclosure on. Like, it is black man approved. I kid you not.
Black man approved. You heard him. And let's be real. If it can handle his hands, it can handle anything.
Feet are like, they get so dry, like the heels of them, it'll just kind of like flake off. Like, but with Soft Disclosure, once you put it on, like it starts to absorb it.
Yeah, he went there. Don't worry, we won't show you his feet, but trust us, they're smoother too. Soft Disclosure Lotion is made with aloe, goat's milk, honey, and our exclusive oil blend that actually restores your skin barrier. Visit softdisclosure.com, use code BADLANDS, and get 15% off.